Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. Today we're going to go through my FPL team selection for Game Week 4. I've got 2 free transfers, plenty of options, and a lot of planning to do for the weeks ahead. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Right then, so let's start off by having a look at my Game Week 3 performance. 43 points and a red arrow down to 850-ish K, which isn't ideal, and my team doesn't actually look too fantastic for Game Week 3. So a little bit frustrating. Picked Onana over Turner. Onana obviously with that 0-pointer, including 2 goals conceded and the yellow card. Not fantastic whatsoever. Little bit concerned about Onana, but with good fixtures just around the corner, I think he's a hold for me. So I'm not looking at transferring him out just yet. And Turner might come in 1 or 2 of those game weeks as well. So I don't think he's a priority, but maybe a little bit of concern. And on a wild card, I probably wouldn't choose to have him again. Chilwell, 6-pointer in the back line. That's absolutely fine. Very frustrated not to get a goal out of him against Luton. I cannot believe he didn't shoot and tried to square it across when it was an open goal. So very frustrating there. But the positions he's getting into, I think the points will come. So 6-pointer, not too bad. Saliba and Estupiñán both getting 1-pointers, not ideal. So my backline overall, including my keeper, only combined to get me 8 points, which I think is a massive part of the problem from Game Week 3. In my midfield, the other problem comes in when you look at Phil Foden. Now, obviously, it's not his fault he was rotated out this time. Usually it is, but this time it was actually because of a stomach bug. So Bruno Fernandes was my transfer out. Yes, I transferred out a 12-pointer, not ideal whatsoever. And then Foden, if he had started, I was actually pretty confident in how he would get on against Sheffield United away. But as it happens, he only got 5 minutes, got the assist anyway. It was quite a lucky assist, but it also did block a doggy on my bench with a 12-pointer. So I could have gotten away with the transfer and just had Foden being swapped out for a doggy and covered the 12 points with a doggy instead of Bruno Fernandes. So that's not ideal, obviously, but I'm still pretty happy to have Phil Foden in my starting lineup. And ahead of Fulham at home, I don't think many people are going to be buying him this week after what happened last week. So I think having Foden could be a little bit of a differential for me at home to Fulham this week. So fingers crossed that pays dividend this time round. Rashford with 2 returns, that's pretty good going. No bonus points, but it's good to see him off the mark for the season. And he's playing in that left wing position. So I'm pretty happy owning him as it stands. Saka with the penalty, very worried that he wasn't going to be on penalties moving forward after he gave the last one to Ødegaard, but it looks like it is going to be a bit of a situational thing. Ødegaard may step up and take another one in the future, but Saka looks like he's still trusted with the lion's share of penalties, so that's absolutely fine by me. Martinelli and Matoma are both potentially on the chopping block this week. 2 points and 1 point respectively, not fantastic, and the fixtures to come, especially for Brighton, aren't looking too good, so it might be time to have a look at moving on, despite a good start to the season for Matoma and Brighton in general. Haaland up top, missed the penalty, but did score the goal, so 8 points overall, no bonus. Little bit frustrating, but I don't think that really affected me too negatively because everyone was on Haaland anyway, so I will be looking at captaining him again against Fulham. I don't think that's a massive spoiler. Fulham are conceding a lot of XG at the moment, so I'm pretty happy with owning him for the foreseeable. And Watkins, again, that's a hat-trick of assists now, 1 in each game week so far. It would be good to see him get off the mark and get a goal, but for the time being, I'm just happy he's ticking over. And again, I don't think he's a priority sell. Against Liverpool away, we'll go into that a bit later, but I don't think that's a bad fixture for Ollie Watkins whatsoever. Like I mentioned, on the bench, the only player of note is a doggy, 12-pointer, obviously got the assist, got the clean sheet and got the bonus, went off with a potential injury, but as it happens, it looks like he's absolutely fine. He was on the bench for Spurs in the League Cup in the week, and Postecoglou also said it was nothing to worry about. So he will probably be in contention for a start this week in my team. Let me know in the comments below how you got on in Game Week 3 as well. So let's have a look at how I'm setting up for Game Week 4. And Game Week 4, to start with in the backline, is pretty simple. It's Onana versus Turner in goal. Neither have fantastic fixtures, but what I'm going to probably do is back Onana for a couple of saves against Arsenal. If he does manage to keep a clean sheet, he's going to have to get a lot of saves against Arsenal, who are pretty potent in attack. So it's probably either going to be a 1-pointer or something like a 10 or 12-pointer. Much more likely it's going to be on the lower scale, but Turner against Chelsea, I don't really fancy for many points either. So I'm going to back my premium keeper, as it were, the 5 million asset, and hope that he gets some saves out of that Arsenal fixture. In defence, Chilwell against Nottingham Forest at home I think is absolutely ideal. Chilwell and Chelsea in general have some fantastic fixtures still to come. Really happy with owning him, and Nottingham Forest at home should be a pretty decent fixture for Chilwell to get forward, get into the box, and hopefully he doesn't square it this time when he gets the opportunity to shoot and actually buries one. And I think a big haul for Chilwell is on the horizon, so definitely hanging tight with him for now. Udogie has been upgraded to my starting 11 as it stands. I'm pretty confident I will start him over Saliba, who plays Man United at home. There's a half decent chance at a clean sheet for Arsenal in any game, but I think Man United have a pretty good opportunity to score against them, and Saliba's attacking upside is pretty limited. Udogie, on the other hand, Burnley away, okay, maybe a 50-50 chance of a clean sheet. As we now know from the fixtures past, he does get forward, he will get attacking returns in the season, and when he does, he's also pretty likely to get some bonus too. So Burnley away I think is a much better fixture, and I'm very happy to start him over Saliba for this game week. Estupiñán also starts in my 11. I don't really have much doubt about starting him against Newcastle at home. Yes, they'll probably concede, but Newcastle in 2 of the 3 fixtures haven't exactly blown the doors off of the opposition. Yes, it was against Liverpool and Man City, but other than Aston Villa, they haven't really ran riot on anyone's goal so far. Brighton will probably concede, but Estupiñán will have opportunities to attack. As De Zerbi always mentions, he does get forward a lot. He is absolutely crucial to the way Brighton's set up in attack, and he often finds himself in positions much more like a striker would than any other position on the pitch. So Estupiñán for me is an easy hold and an easy lock into my starting 11. Some people are questioning whether or not to sell him for the weeks ahead, and Brighton's fixtures aren't looking great. It is absolutely fair to look at selling him if you've got other options elsewhere. But personally, I'm looking around at defenders and I don't really think there are many that I'm really confident on consecutive clean sheets in the next few game weeks, and Estupiñán's attacking threat is so great at the moment that I'd actually back him to get a couple of assists, maybe a goal or 2 in the next few games, even against those stronger opponents, and I'm pretty happy with starting him for the foreseeable future. Moving into my midfield, and this is where my 2 free transfers are most likely to be played this week, and I am probably looking at using both of them. Now, Rashford against Arsenal away, on the face of things, probably isn't the perfect fixture, but I do think Arsenal can be got at. Left wing for Rashford is a much stronger position for him as well, and it looks like Højlund might be in contention for getting minutes against Arsenal as well, which means that they might actually finally have that prolific talismanic striker to play off of. Rashford getting the runs in behind on the spin would be a really good thing for Man United as well, and I'm sure they'll be looking at targeting that left flank and hoping that Arsenal play that inverted back 3 with Partey moving into midfield again, meaning they could be a little bit exposed down that flank if they get caught on the break. So Rashford against Arsenal away, I don't mind at all. And the fixtures, like I mentioned, pretty soon turn positive for Man United. So I think for me, he's a hold for the time being. Foden against Fulham at home, I really hope he starts. There's no reason to think he shouldn't, but obviously with Pep, there's always that risk that at random a player will drop out of the 11. If he does start, I really like him as a differential this week. Fulham have been conceding a lot of XG so far this season. Even with Paulinho back in the 11, I still think they'll struggle against Man City, away from home as well. So I do think Foden's got a great chance of unlocking that defence and getting a pretty decent haul. And I don't think too many people are going to be on him this week after what happened last week either. Saka against Man United, again, he's going nowhere in my starting 11 for the foreseeable future. Against Man United, who are conceding quite a few chances at the moment, I think he's a pretty decent hold anyway. And Arsenal's fixtures, even after this week, aren't bad enough that I'd consider selling him when he is such a prolific player. He's talismanic for Arsenal and he's on penalties as well. However, the final 2 players, Martinelli and Mitoma, are on the chopping block, as I hinted at earlier. Mitoma at home to Newcastle is the start of not a great run of fixtures, and even though I'm pretty happy to hold Estupiñán for the attacking upside, I think there are so many other options in midfield that I like the look of that Mitoma's place is always going to be under threat when he goes up against harder, more difficult defences to unlock. So Mitoma for me is on the chopping block potentially because I think there are just so many good other midfield options out there. And Martinelli at 8 million, I think he will tick over, and I think he is still a fantastic asset in FPL. But again, there are so many other midfielders that I like the look of at the moment that I just think there might be more attacking upside elsewhere. And with Arsenal about to hit the Champions League in a couple of game weeks and quite a lot of depth in their squad, I think it's a bit of a risk that Martinelli won't get the full 90 week in, week out anymore, might get more like 60 to 70 minutes, get taken off a little bit earlier, or maybe on the odd occasion he even gets rested in the league for an important Champions League match, for instance. So I think he is a difficult sell, but for me, I see more attacking upside elsewhere. So those are the two players on the chopping block for me this week. Let's take a look at who I think might be coming in for these two players. So if you watched my watch list video earlier this week, you probably could have guessed at the two players that I was most keen on. Maddison, for me, my number one pick for this game week. There are a few people that are worried that he's only going to tick over in FPL this season and get the odd assist, the odd goal. I actually don't think that's true. I think he's got explosive potential in his locker, and at Leicester, maybe we just didn't see the maximum potential of what he can do in a side. Now, in that cam role for Tottenham, everything is running through him at the moment, and every chance created seems to have something to do with Maddison. 7.7 million, I still think, despite those two price rises, is going to be really fantastic value. I don't have the same worries as I do about Martinelli in terms of the minutes. It's just about whether or not he can stay fit. Obviously, he's got a little bit of a patchy injury record, but as long as he's even got a leg to stand on, I think Maddison will be a lock in that starting 11 because he's so crucial to their build-up play and the way they set up in attack. Again, because he's running the show, I think he is actually potentially quite explosive for Spurs. Now, the reason I think that is whenever he gets any sort of attacking return, as we've seen in the past and as we're seeing already this season, he actually ranks really highly on the BPS system, which means that he's more likely to get those bonus points than other attacking players in the side. That's mainly because of his progressive runs, his passing, and his chance creation as well. So because he's got all of that going on, he ranks really highly in the BPS, and if he gets any sort of attacking return, he's actually quite likely to nab a couple of bonus as well. So it looks like any assist might not just be a 3-pointer, but actually maybe even a 4 or a 5-pointer, adding on to the appearance points as well. So we're looking at 7-8 points, even if he gets any sort of attacking return. If he gets 2, obviously it's going to be max bonus. It's going to be a 12-pointer, maybe even more. And I think because of the underlying XG and XA data I've seen so far from Maddison, it actually tells me that maybe those hauls are coming with 2 or 3 attacking returns in one game rather than just one every single week. I don't think that's the way Spurs are going to operate. They're going to be relentless in attack, and I think Maddison, at the heart of it, is actually quite likely to get a couple of returns in any given game week. With the fixtures coming up ahead, I think he is a lock in my team, and I really look forward to having him in my starting 11. The second player I'm really tempted by this week is Raheem Sterling. Now, obviously, I'm not expecting that 19-pointer against Luton every single game week. Chelsea won't go up against that sort of opposition each week, but they still do have a really nice run of fixtures in the next 5. Now, I'm potentially looking at a game week 9 wildcard. Now, that's not locked in, and I'll talk about it a bit more in future videos, but because of that look to the future and looking at the fact that I might be playing that game week 9 wildcard, Sterling up until game week 9 has absolutely fantastic fixtures, and he's cheaper than a lot of the other options that I would be looking at in that stretch. Now, he is looking like a player that is at the heart of Chelsea's attack. He wants to be their top goal scorer this season. I'm sure every player would say that, by the way. It doesn't really mean too much, but what it does mean is that he's going to be hunting for those goals. He is going to consider himself a lock in that team every single week, and as long as he's fit, I think he'll get 90 minutes more often than not. He is a fitness machine. If you look at his average minutes per start throughout his career, they're always 80 plus. So Sterling at 7.2 million, I think a bit like Maddison, he's going to be prolific and talismanic in that Chelsea side, and I do expect him to get a good number of attacking returns even if he's not playing Luton every single game week. Mitoma out for 6.6 million isn't an easy swap. He has been really impressive so far, but like I mentioned earlier, I think there are better fixtures to attack over the next 4 or 5 fixtures until I potentially wildcard. And Matoma, with some quite difficult fixtures and the fact that Europe will come into contention for Brighton soon, I expect maybe a little bit of rotation. Not so sure he won't start games, but he might get taken off early a couple of times just to rest him for those European ties. So I think the upside picks of Maddison and Sterling beat out Martinelli and Matoma for now. They could hurt me in any given game week, and I'm sure they'll do well over the run, but I think I can do better out of Maddison and Sterling. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with these transfers or if you think there are better moves I can make elsewhere. So with those transfers loaded, as you can see, Maddison and Sterling both have fantastic games in Game Week 4 to look forward to. Burnley away for Maddison and Nottingham Forest at home for Sterling makes my midfield look a lot stronger than it did previously. So moving on to the forward line, and Haaland, as I mentioned, will have the captain's armband for me this week against Fulham, who are conceding a lot of XG at the moment. Even with Palhinha back in the side, I still expect, as I mentioned earlier, for it to be a pretty good fixture for Man City, and I'm definitely going to be putting the armband on him unless we hear anything about an injury, which is quite rare in Haaland's case. Watkins away at Liverpool. Now, I mentioned earlier that I don't think that that's a bad fixture, and I really don't. Watkins has a good goal-scoring record against the bigger sides. Aston Villa like playing on the break as well, and against that high line, both Diaby and Watkins, if I had Diaby on my side as well as Watkins, I'd be very happy to hold them this week. I think they'll exploit that high line, and it's important to know and remember that Van Dijk is now suspended. So they're going to be playing most likely with a back two in the centre-backs of Joe Gomez and Joel Matip. Now, I think that that's pretty get-attable for Aston Villa. And without Van Dijk or Konate, who looks like a bit of an injury worry himself at the moment, I think Aston Villa could have plenty of joy there. So I'm not saying they'll necessarily win the game, but I think there are goals in it for both sides. And I certainly think Watkins has a good shot at getting some attacking returns in this fixture. Because I've got that Chelsea coverage elsewhere and the Man City coverage elsewhere in midfield with Sterling and Foden, I'm not that tempted in moving Watkins to Jackson or to Alvarez. If you had one of those players this week, I'd absolutely be happy with that as well. But I've covered it off in a slightly different way with Foden and Sterling. So I'm happy to own Watkins for this game week, and their fixtures do turn pretty decent in the future as well. So because he's so talismanic for Aston Villa, I'm not looking at selling him at the moment. Maybe in weeks to come, I'll eye it up. But for the time being, against Liverpool away, I'm pretty happy with that. So there you have it. That's my team selection for Game Week 4. 2 free transfers to use, and I'm looking at using them in the midfield to bring in Sterling and Maddison, which I think in combination, a lot of people are going to struggle to get to both this game week. So I think hopefully that'll be a little bit of a differential, especially when you add in Foden to that mix. I think that's a combination of players that not many people will have all 3 of. Let me know in the comments below what transfers you're planning on making in this game week. And if you've got any dilemmas whatsoever, please let me know in the comments, and I will try and get back to all of you before the Game Week 4 deadline tomorrow. In the meantime, if you're still here and you've enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could just drop a like on the video, and if you really are enjoying my content, if you could subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated, and you'll never miss anything else I do. In the meantime, I wish you all the best in Game Week 4, and I'll see you on the other side to start planning for Game Week 5 during the international break.